I'll tell you what, I told this to Netanyahu's face. I said, I look at you and I see Churchill. I see the same resolve and determination to fight to the end to accomplish your objective despite the obstacles and the impediments that are around you and inside your own government.
Last week, we got to see a stellar presentation by Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who has been at war for almost 2 years. You could see it rearing on him. You could see what it has done to him, how it's aged him, and the pain that he's living with. He spoke so poignantly and spot on at the United Nations. I don't think anyone else could have done a better presentation under these circumstances. He really drove the message home. Let's watch now with this Fox interview to see the reactions to Netanyahu's speech at the UN. And then we'll discuss it afterwards. Kindly subscribe to our channel so a little bit of light will push away a lot of darkness.
We want to bring back our team coverage, Trey Yings, Jennifer Griffin, General Jack Keane, and John Roberts. Trey, let me begin with you. A year ago, when the Prime Minister gave this speech, at the same time, you were covering the story about explosions happening as Nasrallah met his end. And the Prime Minister started off the speech reminding everybody about what Israel was able to accomplish at that point. Thoughts from you overall, and also about this decision to have the IDF place these loudspeakers in Gaza?
Yeah, absolutely. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu actually pulled out a map to show all of the fronts that his country has been fighting on over the past 2 years. And he talked about the success with the Israeli operation, not only against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, but specifically against the Iranian regime during the 12-day war that took place earlier this year. Netanyahu also used this opportunity to push back against allegations of genocide inside the Gaza Strip. And it's important to remember that the UN is not a court of law, although it is a court of public opinion. And we saw many of those delegates walking out at the beginning of his speech because they wanted to send a message about the ongoing fighting inside Gaza that now is at day 721. The Israeli leader also importantly talked about the remaining hostages that are in Hamas captivity. 48 of them, 20 are believed to be alive. And he used these remarks through loudspeakers lined up along the Gaza border to speak directly to the hostages, both in Hebrew and in English, trying to send a message that the Israelis are still fighting to free them from Hamas captivity. The one question that we have here is how this war is going to end. And we have to remember that while Israel and the United States is at the negotiating table, they are negotiating with a terrorist organization. And that is Hamas, a group that has repeatedly rejected many efforts to try to reach a ceasefire deal to bring the hostages home and ultimately end this conflict.
Yeah, as you heard Netanyahu just at the beginning of this speech saying that we've crushed the bulk of Hamas terror machine. We've hammered the Houthis. I want to bring in our colleague and my co-anchor from America Reports, John Roberts, as you join our coverage. Get your thoughts on what you just heard, John, and the message that he sent, as he also at one point, John, offered a pop quiz to those at the UN General Assembly. Who shouts death to America? He raised a sign. The answers were Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, to which he said all of the above. Your thoughts, John?
And then he also said who has murdered Americans in cold blood. And again, the correct answer was all of the above. I thought that was a very effective way for Benjamin Netanyahu to say this is not just about Israel. This is about far more than Israel. This is about the United States. This is about other nations throughout the world. He was also very, very hard on European nations like Britain and France, who say that they will recognize a Palestinian state. Macron was visiting with President Trump at the United Nations General Assembly earlier this week. President Trump was very tough on him, saying, look, you can't do that because that would be to honor October the 7th. Macron tried to say, well, listen, nobody's going to forget October the 7th. But what Netanyahu did was he framed it, in very, very stark terms. He said that recognizing a Palestinian state with Hamas in charge is giving the ultimate reward for October the 7th. He said that would be like awarding Al-Qaeda a state a mile away from New York City in the days after 9/11. So Netanyahu wasting no words in expressing his displeasure with European nations for what he believes is giving a big gift to Hamas. He also talked about the promise of the future, and General Keane has been making these points all morning long. Possibility of negotiations with Syria for a security agreement, maybe not a normalization of relations, and the possibility Netanyahu is holding out of doing something similar with Lebanon if they will help to disarm Hezbollah. But of course, all of this hinges on the lingering conflict with Hamas in Gaza. And until that ends, all of this is being held at abeyance, Sandra.
And General Keane, I'll have you listen to one point that Netanyahu was making about President Trump and how they have shared this threat.
President Trump understands better than any other leader that Israel and America face a common threat. He showed the world that when Iran and its proxies murder Americans, take Americans hostage, shout death to America, burn American flags, and try to assassinate the President of the United States, not once, but twice. He showed them there is a price to pay for all that.
General Keane, your thoughts on that and overall of his speech?
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen with the United Nations General Assembly this week or so are two major seminal speeches, one by Donald J. Trump, a truth teller to be sure, who laid a case out dealing with the UN and its members and their complete hypocrisy and falsehood and lies that they tell. They're supposed to be organized to prevent wars, can't do it. They're supposed to be organized to stop wars, can't do it. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, I'll tell you what, I told this to Netanyahu's face. I said, I look at you and I see Churchill. I see the same resolve and determination to fight to the end to accomplish your objective despite the obstacles and the impediments that are around you and inside your own government. And I see President Trump as Roosevelt, who's there, unequivocal support to you, doesn't necessarily agree with everything, provides counsel and guidance in a relationship. That was what Churchill and Roosevelt were all about. And that speech that he delivered today was a seminal speech from a truth teller, just like Donald J. Trump. And I agree totally with the attacking the false narratives that exist out there with genocide, starvation, and all of the false narratives surrounding the Palestinian state and what does that really mean. As we all know what it means to the people who have the guns, it means the elimination of the Jewish state. Now, who can tolerate anything like that?
Right.
And so, and let's identify the people that walked out and the demonstration that they're making by that for our audience to understand. The UN is a body that is largely anti-Israel. It has a history of significant anti-Semitism, and it has an undercurrent for years of anti-Americanism. That's what's walked out of that room. The world still listened to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and if you scan the cue card that he wanted you to do, there are graphic videos there and there are graphic pictures there that help you understand what I was privileged to see when I was in Israel of the horror of October the 7th. And I certainly applaud the Prime Minister in identifying what he has achieved and underscore what the incredible possibilities are into helping to stabilize and normalize the Middle East as a result of that achievement. And John emphasized it again, and I don't need to repeat it. A lot of opportunity in front of us. Bring the war in Gaza to an end, and let's get on with the rest of it.
To that point, Jennifer, here was a moment in Netanyahu's speech where he very firmly called out and sent a message to other countries opposing Israel. Listen.
That over time, many world leaders buckled. They buckled under the pressure of a biased media, radical Islamist constituencies, and anti-Semitic mobs. There's a familiar saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, for many countries here, when the going got tough, you caved. And here's the shameful result of that collapse. For much of the past 2 years, Israel has had to fight a seven-front war against barbarism with many of your nations opposing us. Astoundingly, as we fight the terrorists who murdered many of your citizens, you are fighting us.
I think we were all exceedingly proud of Prime Minister Netanyahu's presentation at the United Nations. I personally stood at that podium. That was on June 26, 2019, shortly after the mass shooting that I survived at our synagogue. We were the second synagogue in all U.S. history to have survived a mass shooting on April 27, 2019. Unfortunately, Lori Lynn Gilbert Kay was murdered right in front of my eyes as I was talking with her. The shooter tried to assassinate me. He successfully got these 2 fingers, but the rest of me survived as I was running to bring the children to safety. After that mass shooting, I was invited to address the General Assembly at the United Nations. As I stood on that podium, I thought to myself, it was a mixture of just amazement for me to be at this stage, but also disappointment of what happens at the United Nations. The same podium that hosted great people also hosted terrible people. And what happened in the United Nations when Mr. Netanyahu got up to speak, to see the nerve, or as we called it in Hebrew, the chutzpah, for those who got up and left in protest, was just not only so immature and so inappropriate and so disgusting and pathetic. It's supposed to be a United Nations. The least you could do is sit and show some reverence and respect to the speaker and listen and engage in conversation. But to just get up and walk out as such a sign of disrespect, and which meant nothing to Bibi Netanyahu or to the Jewish people or to Israel, because we do know what side of history we are on. We do know who we side with. We know that we are a religion and a nation that's bent on the living. We're not a death cult, as the evil, dark terrorists that you are siding with. But we are a nation that were given a mandate by God 3,337 years ago to be a light unto the nations and to be able to be a light unto the world. And yeah, we have done a great job in spite or despite of everything that we've been through. All the pogroms, all the inquisitions, all the executions, all of the holocausts, the October 7th that we have been through. We are still there for you. We exist for you. And this is what Israel in the last 77 years has accomplished. We have been able to land on our feet after the darkest days of humanity of the Holocaust, where we lost a third of our nation. We were just a mere 15 million before the Holocaust, and 6 million of us were murdered and taken away from us. And yet we came to the shores of Israel, and we turned Israel, that has been neglected and desolate for 2,000 years, into a flourishing first world country. And the very first thing we did was put our hearts and our minds together, not to be victims, but rather to be able to see what can we contribute, how can we get back on our feet, how can we rebuild ourselves and become a nation that can defend the Jewish people. For 2,000 years we were defenseless. Now we can actually defend any Jew anywhere around the world, wherever they may be. And look what Israel has contributed to the world since the last 77 years. I challenge you to compare Israel's accomplishments to any of its Arab neighbors. Think about the innovations, the inventions in all areas of life, from agriculture to academics to transportation to technology to medicine to art. You just name it. In all areas of humanity, Israel has been on the forefront and the cutting edge of innovation and inventions, not for itself, but for you, for the world. When is the world going to realize that and appreciate it? We know secretly you understand us, you side with us. You know that Israel and the Jewish people come in peace. You know that we use our history not to become a victim, but rather to become heroes, to become innovators, inventors, and to contribute to society. Not to take from society, but to contribute to society. We wake up in the morning thinking, what can we do to better society's life throughout the world? And we have proven it time and time again, whenever there's any natural catastrophe, Israel is from the first of nations to respond, whether it's an earthquake, a tsunami, a wildfire, any natural disaster or other disaster. Israel always is there with a lending hand, because that is who we are, that is what we represent, and that's what we want to be. The United Nations, Mr. Netanyahu spoke beautifully, right on. The message needs to be heard. And everyone should look at the QR card and really spend a moment to watch the videos and to watch his presentation, so you can understand what Mr. Netanyahu, our Prime Minister, has been up against. And he's been challenged from within Israel and around the world. They've called him all different names. They've even criminalized him. But put yourself in his shoes. What would you have done differently? Our sages teach us, never judge a person until you've been in their shoes. I think we need to be behind our Prime Minister no matter what. During time of war, he needs our moral support and he needs our commitment to see this through to the end. The end will be the eradication of the evil in Hamas, and not to allow them to commit their promises that they said on October 8th. We will repeat this again and again and again and again. We now know to believe them. Hitler said that before World War II, and we didn't believe him, and we didn't have any way to defend ourselves. Now we believe our enemy when they say we're going to do this again, and we have the means to defend ourselves. Let's just hope the rest of the world can partner with us, be with the right side of history, and end this war, bring the hostages home, the dead and the live ones, and let us begin rebuilding Gaza with a democracy, with peace and freedom of choice, and to have a secure borders. God bless you. God loves you.